Welcome to the Apple Insider Podcast, our first episode of 2023. We're going to talk about CES, some of the exciting announcements from the Consumer Electronics Show. Apple Books now has AI-generated narration for some of their collection, and we're going to mention that whole LastPass and password manager debacle. This episode is brought to you by Factor and Kolide, and joining me for the first episode of the year, Wes Hilliard. How's it going, Wes?
It's fine, Steven. Shuffling through all the CES coverage, and now I'm finding out that we'll never get a William Read Apple Books. It's all going to be AI now, all the way down.
I'll pay for it. But you know that the AI has to, be based on something. I think. Anyway, we're going to talk about AI narration because I do think that is quite an interesting change for Apple to do something like that. But CES is going on right now in Las Vegas. Our friend Andrew O'Hara is over there. He's covering a bunch of stuff, and we talk about all of the Matter and smart home products. There were a ton announced and released, tons of press releases. So listen to HomeKit Insider on Monday because we cover all of those things. We're going to touch on a couple things that, tangentially Apple related. Everybody needs monitors and stuff. And so we talk about that, some wireless charging, but we have news as well. Few 5-star reviews before we jump into it. El Waquito from the USA, he gave us 4 stars, but he said he will give us 5 stars when William watches Ted Lasso. I'm just saying this for William's sake. I don't know if that will ever happen, but thanks for at least the 4-star review.
I think that'll make him want to watch it less, actually.
Oh, it might. We'll see if it backfires. Lyman Field from Great Britain and Mike Swim from the USA. Thank you for those first 5-star reviews of the year. Now, CES, this is the huge electronics show. It happens every year, Las Vegas in January. Apple historically does not really much of anything at CES. This is not really Apple announcements, not a lot of Apple devices, but there are sometimes accessories, and it's interesting just to see the wild things that are announced.
Steven, Apple may not be at CES, but there's an awful lot of coverage that, they pretty much own the show even though they're not present. Isn't it weird?
It is weird. It's
so much of the conversation is around Apple without them even having to show up. That's just the brand power that they have at this point.
And that is true. And I'll just mention, there are no Apple devices released or announced at CES. But like you're saying, there's so many accessories. There's been announcements about wireless charging and MagSafe that we'll get to. So it is interesting, how much it sneaks in there. Everybody will mention Apple. But I do want to mention real quick the displays, because one of the funniest things at CES is the crazy TVs that you see. But there are some displays, some of them specifically targeting the Apple Studio Display and Pro Display XDR, offering alternatives, quote unquote, although they're not exactly one-to-one alternatives. Samsung has a crazy 57-inch curved gaming monitor at 240 hertz. I thought maybe that would tempt William. He likes his ultra-wide monitors.
A 45-inch ultra-wide 4K monitor. It's madness.
It's hilarious. This way William can put all his text documents side by side. He can have 30 text documents. But that's interesting. But more so, they came out. This is the Viewfinity S9 from Samsung, and it is one of these Samsung products that when you squint, it's is that the studio display or is that is something else? And it is something else. This is a 27-inch 5K display, directly, again, taking on the studio display. The thing is, it doesn't have the same connectivity. It does have some USB-C ports. I think it has Thunderbolt as well. And it has, it looks very much like it, if you want to knock off. I didn't see price, though. Did we see any price for this thing?
There's no prices for any of these new products, as far as I can tell.
Right. Possible vaporware. And they'll probably release it, but I guess it's nice to have an alternative, maybe?
Well, Samsung also announced that they shrunk their M8, that popular monitor that they have.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, it's normally 32 inches, now it's 27 inches, so that is also now right in the field of being a studio display competitor, and I want to see how those two compare, especially since, it runs its own little TV platform inside of it that you don't need a computer to connect to, so it's just an interesting set of devices that definitely, if Apple centric but maybe want to connect a console to one of these monitors, this is the perfect kind of display, because Apple, studio display, you're not connecting a PlayStation to that, not easily anyway.
Sure. The other competing display was from Dell. They announced a 32-inch 6K ultra sharp display. This is more trying to take on the Pro Display XDR and, a bunch of high-end specs. It does have an HDMI port, USB-C. It does have Thunderbolt 4 port, which can power a laptop up to 140 watts. So, you can use it with that kind of stuff. Has speakers built in, unlike Pro Display XDR. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the XDR does not have speakers built in, right?
No, the Studio Display does, but the XDR does not.
Correct. So it is not as attractive as the Pro Display XDR. Like the stand looks kind of like as you would expect the Dell monitor stand to be. And it's got bigger bezels probably than, like especially the top part than the Pro Display XDR. But more options out there. Again, no pricing. So we have no idea if it's actually competitive, although I'm sure it'll be less than $6,000.
Oh, for sure. By all measurements, the Pro Display XDR is old technology. It's just Apple doesn't change the price of anything until it dies. It has to disappear from the market or be removed. Apple just does not budge on pricing, even if, remember, what was it? The trash can Mac Pro was still $4,000 8 years after it was announced that you could still buy it. Right? Sure. Like
you can still buy the 2019 Intel Mac Pro and it's the same price.
Right. $50,000, right?
Well, yeah, if you spec it up, yes. And then there was also, you covered the ViewSonic 27-inch 4K display, which the studio display is 5K.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, it's a 5K.
So it's 27-inch 4K, but nice display, USB-C port, 96-watt power delivery. Did you have any thoughts on this one?
I just like that it's OLED. It's funny that a lot of these are moving to OLED and Apple's still using their regular LED backlight. The studio display isn't even mini LED.
Right.
So it brings up the question of, this is a $1,500 display and it's LED backlit. Why not at least move up to mini LED? Will that increase the price that much, or would OLED actually be cheaper at that range? It's a tough question because when you look at this ViewSonic, I don't think there's a price attached to it, but I'm willing to guess that it's a $900 range monitor. Like that's the style that they usually go to.
Right. I'm curious, listeners, do you guys use third-party monitors? I like my studio display. I waited a long time for a inexpensive one. I used the LG Ultrafine before it, which was notoriously fine.
I've reviewed a few monitors and I own a couple outside of Apple's, and I'll say the market outside of Apple, and this is why we were all so desperate as Apple fans for an Apple made monitor that didn't cost $6,000. It's awful. It's a bad world out there. It's hard to recommend almost any monitor on the market because most of them are 4K. We're finally seeing, like this year, I think finally is the year of 5K entering the 27-inch lineup, which means that we're actually going to get the proper what is it, native resolution of Mac OS at 27 inches. Whereas before, if you're at 4K at 27 inches, you're running a scaled resolution of Mac OS, which is fine, but it's not that perfect crispness that you get from like the MacBook or the iPad. So we're finally seeing that market change a little bit, but we're still dealing with HDR 400, which is a made-up spec that basically shouldn't even be there. If your monitor says that it's HDR, just turn it off. It'll look better. I almost in every instance that I've tested like anything like this, it's just bad. I don't know why it's so hard to make, but that's probably again why Apple's displays are so expensive, even though notably the studio display is not HDR. But I just wanted to point out that these look promising, but there's always this weird edge case issue that is like, it's great, but and then but then I look at the studio display and the webcam's stupid, but I'm not using it. But overall, like it's been an excellent monitor. It's definitely been my favorite that I've had in a long time.
Yeah. Well, and the last thing I want to mention kind of from CES, Qi Standard, which Qi spelled QI, Qi is like the wireless charging standard. The Wireless Power Consortium announced that Qi2, the next wireless charging standard, will actually be adopting Apple's MagSafe as the basis for the standard, which is really cool because that means as Qi chargers are released in the future, they're able to make it MagSafe specifically, which if you remember, something that's Qi charging or regular wireless charging will be like 5 or 7 watts, pretty much at the most, which is, pretty slow charging speed. But
and Apple products.
Well, yeah, of course, Apple products,
You can have 15 watt. Heck, I think I've seen like 40 watt wireless charging on the Android side of things. Xiaomi likes to up the wattage like crazy. I don't think they're ever going to be able to sell in the United States because they'll set buildings on fire. But you've seen crazy high wattages in the Qi standard, but because of that efficiency, like you're operating at like 50 or less % efficiency when you're using standard Qi charging. So you're getting almost half, if not less than that. And then whereas MagSafe is closer to like 75 or 80%. So, but Apple operating at those lower wattages has always been kind of awful. And that's why MagSafe has been such a boon for Apple users.
Sure.
But hopefully this means we'll actually get some high wattage third-party chargers.
Which would be amazing. And there were some announced, I don't know if these are technically all MagSafe, but like Scosche has some really cool wireless charging pads. Like I'm looking at one specifically. We'll put a link in the show notes, but charge your phone, your watch, and then it has like 3 slots where you can like put an iPad or other devices and then USB-C ports on it. cool charging stations, I think.
I don't like those just because it's like I'm not Walmart. I'm not going to charge 6 iPads at the same time. I want to use these things and not display them that way. Or if I'm charging it, I would like it to be displayed in some way. Like I want it to show what music I'm playing or whatever. But nothing announced at CES, as far as I'm aware, is Qi2. Just because I think that's like later this year. But the bigger story and what I'm excited for is that Qi2 being based on MagSafe. Like Apple basically handed them the basis of the standard as MagSafe, which is they're referring to it as something else, magnetic power profile. So, they're not going to call it MagSafe. You're not going to go to the store and see MagSafe branding. Well, you might, just because accessory manufacturers don't really care. I don't think it's a trademarked word, technically. I don't think Apple owns the rights to the word MagSafe. We'd have to look at that. It's the same idea. The magnetic power profile basically means that the charging base and the device that is attaching to it both have magnets that align the charging pads in a way that basically ensure that the connection is perfectly aligned every time, and you get that high efficiency rate. And they also promise that the standard will enable higher charging rates to be introduced to the Qi2 standard later down the line. So we could see 20 watt MagSafe or higher, as long as Apple builds in support. But that means accessory makers will be able to make universal chargers that can target Samsung Galaxy phones that are released later, of course, because it's not going to be backwards compatible. They don't have magnets in the phone right now, but going forward, every new smartphone made with Qi2's charging standard will also be compatible with Apple's chargers, which I think is really exciting for the market.
Yeah. And so it's exciting. I know I was actually at the mall the other day with my kids, and there was one of those little like mall kiosk things that were selling phone accessories. And there was a very similar to the Belkin 3-in-1 tree charger looking thing on the stand. And my son was going to get it. And I was like, it looks cool, but it was $90, which is very close to like Belkin's pricing. And it's like, I would just prefer the official Belkin MagSafe or whatever. And I don't trust these things to actually be MagSafe. I imagine it's just a holder with the 7 or 5 watt charging, and then who knows how hot that battery is going to get night after night of charging it. And so I am hopeful that this Qi2 standard, maybe even those like cheaper accessories like no-name brands or whatever, if they also adopt this Qi2 standard, hopefully it'll be easier to spot at a distance or at a glance to say, oh yeah, that's like MagSafe, and I can trust it to charge my phone if I want to try some of these third-party accessories.
Well, I imagine this has greater implications, too, for the accessory market, because this doesn't just apply to charging. If every smartphone sold after, this spring when the standard launches, if every new smartphone sold is Qi2 compatible, that means it has a magnet in the back of the phone. That means that Android users will have access to magnetic accessories similar to MagSafe wallets or grips or battery packs. So I foresee a near future where we have Anchor and these other companies making battery packs that work on iPhone and Android, or wallets that fit multiple phone types and stuff like that. And I think it'll greatly expand what's available on the market, because while you can go online and find a lot of MagSafe accessories, it's still not iPhone case level of every third kiosk in the mall is selling 3,000 different cases.
No.
And I expect this will open that ecosystem up as well, because why not take advantage of the magnets in your device, for other things other than charging? And that's where Apple came from with MagSafe. And as we all know, the industry loves mimicking Apple, and I can only see this also mimicking Apple in that way for accessories as well. So good news all the way around. And finally, just to close this one out, I wanted to point out, if Apple is the basis for the latest charging standard, the EU has no argument against Apple if they pull the USB-C port from a future iPhone or iPad. So, because they will be using a universal charging standard, just not a wired one.
Gotcha. All right, so that's CES. Again, we talk a lot about it on HomeKit Insider, and we'll cover any other big announcements on the next episode, if there are things, tangentially Apple related. But let's jump into some Apple news.
One quick question. Are you going to buy an LED fridge?
What was it, Samsung that announced the RGB thing?
Yeah, the whole front display has like 4 panels that can be controlled that are just giant RGB lights. And I think you can like have notifications set up. Like if your milk goes bad, it turns red or something.
I'm always tempted. I will say I do want a smart washer and dryer that can at least tell me when it's like done or like how much time is left on a cycle. I feel like that would be a
I want
good
a
feature.
HomeKit smart washer and dryer that's like a doorbell, right? So the smart doorbells ring your HomePods when someone rings the doorbell. Chime the HomePods when the washer and dryer is ready.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Take it all the way. Let me set a stove timer with Siri, or well,
Right.
I don't know. I don't like the idea of having computers and appliances that cost $1,000, $2,000 because that chipset is going to be obsolete the minute you buy it, and how often you're replacing that appliance. But if someone could just figure out a way to do this that isn't so scary and tie it into Matter, and hopefully that means it's tied into HomeKit, I'm down.
Yeah, sure.
Gosh, we are so desperate for more HomeKit categories, right? I mean...
Yes, robot vacuums. Robot vacuums is the big one, which Matter the Spec 2 might do it. But anyway, HomeKit Insider. Go check out them for smart home stuff. Actual Apple news. This came out really just before we started recording, but there's now a large section in the Apple Books app where it states that novels are read by AI. The exact line description in Apple Books says, "This is an Apple Books audiobook narrated by a digital voice based on a human narrator." And so it seems like some narrator, some voiceover artist is maybe getting credit. Again, that is totally unclear. There's been no news about that. But the fact that these are entire novels based on AI, this has been such a ChatGPT and AI art, like all these conversations. But this to me feels like one of the first really close, like real world, a job of someone, namely a voiceover artist that reads audiobooks, which if you're not familiar, like you can go on Fiverr, Amazon, I think it's ADX is like the huge library where you can like submit yourself as a voice actor and read, and you can even audition for other book projects. And they can be, pretty expensive depending. Like sometimes it's up to $100, $200, $300 per hour of narrated book. You can kind of set pricing that way. If this is an option that becomes widely available where an author has a book and they can choose, do I hire a human being or do I pay for an AI generated thing, which would be perfect, would probably not require much editing, say for maybe a few pronunciation things, but like you don't have to be in a studio for 10, 12, 20 hours recording a book. Like I feel like this has pretty large ramifications in the very, very near future on like a literal job product. And like I actually personally try to do some like ADX auditions and read for audiobooks, and now that I'm seeing this news, I'm like, this does not feel like an industry that will be widely available soon.
You've done this before, right, Stephen? This is difficult work, right? It is actually quite hard to stare at a page, read the words exactly punctually correct in a way that the microphone's going to pick up while telling a story, right? It is a job.
Right.
And I think that this is the perfect example of like a double-edged sword. This is going to be amazing for accessibility. More books undoubtedly will have access to audio versions because of this than before. So that's an overall plus. Less people getting paid isn't great. Someone doing the original voice work for the AI artist probably got one fat paycheck, no residuals. That's not going to happen in this case. They're just getting paid to make the voice and then move on. So it'll be cheaper overall. You probably have to pay for the program to do it. But I think it also opens doors for more interesting audiobooks, because imagine instead of getting one guy doing voices for 40 characters, where you define different voices for different roles, and then as it generates the book, it's like, this character is speaking, so I'm going to do this voice. You can have different voice work for different roles, and have a narrator and everything, all generated by a computer. Maybe not perfect, maybe not well acted, but still, I think it would be interesting.
Yeah, well, and especially again, I keep thinking with all this AI stuff, 5 to 10 years from now, what is it 5 to 10 years? And I feel like 5 years from now, it'll probably be good enough where you won't know if it's an AI generated. You might not even be able to tell now, depending on how good the AI is. But 5 years from now, like I can imagine a majority of audiobooks being created, even if it's based on like human beings, it would be AI generated stuff. And apparently our article says that Apple approached publishers over creating partnerships for this. And there were some publishers that turned Apple down on the AI generated narration. So it seems like some publishers are still trying to hold on to that like human being voiceover for audiobook. But
I think it's interesting. Like audio is such a weird thing, because like I think like a book, especially certain like informational books, this is great for. Acting roles are always going to be different, or like podcasting. Yes, you can have an AI voice read out a news article and call it a podcast, but I think bringing personality to it, that's a far away thing from AI. And so I'm not worried about podcasting going away anytime soon, but it does raise the question of like, what does this mean for information and education going forward? And now I can just imagine Apple making a commercial with a girl annoyingly saying something like, "What's a book?" And yeah, everyone's
Sure.
heads explode.
Nobody reads books anymore. That was Steve Jobs' line. Nobody reads books anymore. Reads books.
Nobody, a lot of people claim to read books.
That's true.
I got my
That's true.
Apple Books year-end report.
You get a year-end report for that?
It's somewhere in the app. It tells you how many books you read for the year, and I read about 5. So,
Okay,
and
that's good.
and you know what? It's so annoying because it counts manga and comic books. So I didn't read anything, Stephen. I'm telling you that.
Listen, you're reading stuff.
I like
It's
reading
words.
I've been telling myself since I graduated high school, I need to read more books because it is a favorite pastime. I was that kid that read 40 books a week.
Sure. Sure.
Book in my face. Now there's just no time. When do you read books, Stephen? I need to replace sleep with books. I think that's the only way to do it.
No, you don't want to do that. I read books on the weekend. I'll try to take a few hours on a Sunday afternoon and read some of a book, but I'll also read like a chapter at night. And I will say, for a long time, I really had to buy physical books because when I tried to do anything on a device like my iPad mini, which I love, I was always pulled another direction, like wanting to do something.
Right.
But I tried again the other day, and I think I have my focus modes pretty well set now, where when I picked up my iPad mini, it was like 10 o'clock at night. I was able to read a good part of a book on my iPad mini. My eyes didn't get tired. Like, it looked really good. I even read outside another day with the iPad mini, and the screen was bright enough to read outside. It didn't feel I was sitting on a patio, and it was a really nice experience. And so I think I'm going to try and go back into the like reading from my iPad mini, doing Apple Books. And because I do like the digital book to be able to highlight, those highlights sync, and then you can refer to it on your Mac and go back. Like, I like all those features, and like to do that to a physical book, you have to like physically highlight or like.
You're destroying a book. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't do that. Yeah.
Do you collect physical versions of the books that you purchase in iBooks?
No, I don't do that. There's been a couple books where I've like tried the digital at first and I get too distracted, and so I'll buy the physical book because it has helped me like stay with it. But no, I don't buy both.
Yeah, I currently don't, but I definitely plan to expand. I have a lot of my favorite books in hardback just because having the physical version of it, it was nice to have a book on deployment where you couldn't bring electronic devices in restricted areas, but you could bring a book.
Okay,
And,
okay.
so it was nice to have stuff like that. But I do want to call out, since we're talking about books, my favorite series of all time, fantasy series called Dragon Riders of Pern. If you've never heard of it, Anne McCaffrey. Amazing, perfect book series. She died a few years back, but she finished. It is over. Her son did a couple of books with her, and then he did a couple on his own. But overall, like 25 books in the series, perfect. End to end, I love it. Go check it out.
Okay, very cool.
Start with Dragon Song. You got anything there, Stephen?
Well, I will say one of the books I recently read is called Stolen Focus. It's really this guy going through like all the different things like social media, technology, but even like environmental factors and things that have contributed to our inability to focus and like hold attention. And I think it even like moves into the creative field where like, why is it harder to think of creative ideas? And so I really enjoyed that book. I read The Violin Maker last year, which is the book that Ken Kosienda, who built the iPhone original software keyboard and Safari on the Mac. He said The Violin Maker was like his inspiration for creativity. And so I wanted to read what he read. And so The Violin Maker was a really interesting book. And, since we're doing book club, hashtag book club for the Apple Insider podcast, I also read How to Be Perfect, which is from Michael Schur, the writer, maybe also producer of The Good Place, which is one of my favorite TV shows, The Good Place with Kristen Bell and, the whole like afterlife morality exploration. Hilarious show, but his book, he basically goes through like all the moral philosophies throughout history from like Aristotelian morals to like Immanuel Kant and all this kind of stuff. So I enjoyed that book this past year as well. So those are some of mine.
No, I struggle to get into nonfiction, and we can move on from this conversation, but I just want to point out that I feel like some of those books are great, but a lot of it is just filled in space because they wanted to sell a book. And I get so much more from listening to someone talk about a book than actually read it usually, honest. Like as far as nonfiction goes.
I will say that I struggle to read fiction. Like when I want to experience fiction, I want to watch a movie or TV show.
Gotcha.
And for some reason, for me, like I prefer reading more like self-development things. But here's a hack. As the last thing on the book club. When you read a book, like a nonfiction, self-development or whatever, you don't have to finish it. Like there have been books like Range by David Epstein. It's a great book. The whole idea is trying to be an expert at exactly one thing doesn't necessarily make you like a better person. Like actually being a jack of all trades.
I was going to say that's the jack of all trades guy. Yeah, I've heard of this one. Yeah.
It's the jack of all trades thing. And like I read the first couple chapters and like got the idea, like felt okay having many interests and being a jack of all trades myself. And then I was like, you know what? I don't think I need to finish this book. Like, I don't think I'm going to gain any more insight after like finishing this thing. And so I didn't finish it. Sometimes I when I tell people like, this is a good book, I read some of it. Maybe, you know, like I did read it.
Right.
But you don't have to finish it. And I will, like, to your point, there are many nonfiction books that are not worth the entire read. And if you ever listen to Cortex with Mike Hurley and CGP Grey.
Excellent show.
Excellent show. Sometimes they will do a book club. And there was a book that they did called Thinking Fast and Slow, which is a bestseller book, really famous, has great ideas in it. But they were like, don't read this book. Like it is kind of a slog and there are some good ideas to glean from it, but a lot of it is not worth the time. It is a really long and thick book. And so for that, I'm like, I'm going to listen to this podcast and not read the book. And I will glean all the information I need out of it. So just for anybody listening out there, don't feel like you have to finish every book. And like you can still feel accomplished for having read it, for having read some of it. That was good aside. Listeners, let us know what books you've been reading. This episode is brought to you by a brand new sponsor called Factor. It's a new year. Maybe you did a hashtag New Year, New Me. You've got goals. Well, Factor is here to help you achieve them by saving you time and tackling your to-do list and grocery list by delivering ready-to-eat meals right to your door. Get Factor and not only skip the trip to the grocery store, which I've been to the grocery store in the new year. It's crazy out there. Skip the shopping, skip the chopping, the prepping and cleaning up, and let Factor's fresh, never frozen meals, which are ready in just 2 minutes, save you time and you get delicious food. All you have to do is heat and enjoy. No matter your lifestyle, Factor has the meals to help you live to the fullest. They have keto, calorie smart, vegan and veggie, and protein plus meals on the menu each week, and they're prepared by chefs and approved by dietitians. Each meal has all the ingredients you need to feel satisfied all day long. With 34 weekly options, there's always something new to try. Plus, you can round out your meal and replenish your snack supply with an assortment of 36 plus quick bites, smoothies, juices, and more satisfying add-ons. If you're looking to cut back on takeout, get Factor instead. Not only is Factor cheaper than takeout, but meals are ready and quicker than restaurant delivery, just 2 minutes. Listen, I've done restaurant delivery, I've done food delivery. It does not arrive in 2 minutes. It takes much longer than that. You can get their vegan and veggie meals each week. Get Factor and enjoy clean eating without the hassle. Simply choose your meals, enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered to your door, ready in just 2 minutes. There's really no easier way to eat well. Achieve and maintain your goals this year with Factor. Get America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit and start saving time, eating well, and living your best year ever. So head to factor75.com/AppleInsider60. That's factor, the number 75/AppleInsider60, and use the promo code AppleInsider60 on their website to get 60% off your first box. That's a lot of percent. That's code AppleInsider60 at factor75.com/AppleInsider60 to get 60% off your first box. That link, just go to the show notes, click that link. I'll have the promo code for you there as well. Try out Factor today. Our thanks to Factor for sponsoring this episode. This episode is brought to you by Kolide. Traditional endpoint security tools can make your workplace feel like a surveillance state, turn users and the IT team into adversaries, and ultimately drive your employees to work on unsecured personal devices. Well, it doesn't have to be this way. Kolide is a device security solution built around honest security. Their philosophy is that employees aren't your biggest risk, they're your biggest allies, and your relationship with them should be based on transparency and informed consent. Kolide works by notifying your employees of security issues via Slack and giving them step-by-step instructions on how to resolve them. Take, for instance, one of your employees saves some passwords as a plain text file on their desktop. Well, that's not good security practice, so Kolide will send them a private DM in Slack to make sure they're storing their passwords in a secure way. For IT and security teams, Kolide provides the right level of visibility for Mac, Windows, and Linux, and it can answer questions about your fleet security that traditional mobile device managers can't. you can meet your security goals without compromising your values. Visit Kolide.com/AppleInsider to find out how. And if you follow that link, they'll hook you up with a goodie bag just for activating a free trial. That's KOLIDE.com/AppleInsider. Kolide.com/AppleInsider. Our thanks to Kolide for sponsoring this episode. All right, more news. Apple Fitness Plus announced a couple new workouts. This is like the first Apple Newsroom article for the year, which is pretty cool. But Apple Fitness Plus is expanding. On January 9th, you'll be able to do a kickboxing workout. So that's a new workout style. Sleep-themed meditations. Well, I don't assume you would actually be sleeping. But I guess some kind of meditation for sleep. Beyonce is going to be an artist spotlight and new time to walk audio things, and plus 3 new trainers to Apple Fitness Plus. I've done Apple Fitness Plus multiple times. I really like it. I like the walk things where you can listen to actors, famous people, other athletes kind of just talk for 30 minutes as you go for a walk, and I've enjoyed that. Outdoor walk is kind of like my go-to workout. I do wish that Apple Fitness Plus, maybe we'll see this at WWDC this year, but to add things like the group workouts, which you can do like group FaceTime deals, but like actually having like synced real-time / live workouts with a trainer, I think would be interesting. And I know for my wife, she really likes a like 100-day programmatic workout routine. And she does Beachbody, which they have like 100-day workouts. They're like day 1, day 2, day 3. And like, you don't have to think about what workout to do. You can literally just go in order and they kind of work it out where you do it 3 or 4 times a week and it, works as that schedule. It'd be nice if Fitness Plus had those kind of like guided courses or like guided classes to say like, here is a 30-day program from Apple Fitness Plus. You can do this 5 days a week and just do the order.
Apple Fitness Plus has something called collections. It's like a 7-day workout regimen or a, several week workout regimen where you do 1 a week or something. Like they just introduced 2 with there was several announcements with this little release. And they announced 6 weeks to restart your fitness, which releases January 9th. So it's a training course. You do 1, I guess, every week or a couple times a week or something over a course of 6 weeks. Now, unlike like Beachbody and these other things, it's not really taking you into account. They're pre-recorded videos.
Right.
And it's just you're watching a fitness trainer talk to everyone on the planet about the same topic over and over. And you're doing the exact same course as every other person. It's not adjusting to your level. It's not adjusting to how much you've done before, or it's not taking into account that you worked out another time outside of this regimen, right? It's a dumb, like you ordered a VHS tape that comes every week kind of.
Tybo with Billy Blanks.
Right, yeah, like that kind of workout regimen. And I don't know how, I don't know how these other things work. I've never looked at them, but I do understand that some of them do take into account your overall workout regimen, diet, and like can tweak what's recommended and give you different workouts to do based on how much you've worked your arms this week. You're going to do your legs next week. Like I've seen that other things do that. Apple just doesn't do any of that kind of guesswork, even though they have all the data. And I'm with you. That's like my main wish for Fitness Plus growth in the future, of just take the information you have, Apple. I'm feeding you all this stuff. Make it worth my while and upgrade the Fitness Plus experience to actually be for me, not for every person on the planet tuning in.
Sure. Now, this happened before kind of the New Year's, and we recorded the year-end review episode I did with Jason Ayton. That was a lot of fun. Check it out, last episode in the feed. But this happened before all that. But I wanted to bring it up now because I heard John Gruber on the talk show talk about it and the ATP guys. The LastPass Breach. So basically, LastPass, which is a password manager app, up until now has really been mentioned in the same breath as like 1Password or iCloud Keychain. And Dashlane is another option. That it was just kind of another viable password app and option. But their data was breached, and basically millions of users' vaults were stolen from the company. Now, just having users' vaults, like your password vaults, does not necessarily mean that the hackers can access the information inside of it. But because LastPass only encrypts the data in the vault with the user's master password, namely like the 1Password you're supposed to remember as the user so you can access all of your data on your computer or the app in LastPass, that if you figure out that one master password for these LastPass vaults, the hackers would then have access to all of the information, like the web URLs, the usernames, passwords, like they would have everything. LastPass was trying to say that it would take, quote, millions of years to crack a user's master password. And so even though all this data has been stolen, there's not that much of a risk to the LastPass users. But 1Password, kind of like the big name in this space, says that brute force hacking a user's master password, because it's a user-generated master password, it actually would not take that long. It could be done in fewer than 10 billion guesses, which sounds like a lot, but remember, this is not like people guessing. This is a computer program running through all these password combinations.
Also, phishing, right?
Phishing, yeah, that is also a danger. Like phishing, basically like fooling people into giving up their passwords through fake emails or what have you, like spam calls. But that 1Password says like for about $100 is all it would cost for a brute force application to crack these master passwords for LastPass vaults. We've not heard yet of like horror stories, at least not that I'm aware of this LastPass breach, but this is comparison to 1Password and iCloud Keychain specifically. When you think about the differences between these systems, 1Password not only requires a decryption master password, so you have the 1Password like LastPass, where this is what accesses the vault, but 1Password also has a secret key for every 1Password account, which is like a secondary piece of information that is required in order to access the vaults, in order to decrypt the vault's information. And so if the same thing were to happen to 1Password, let's say, and God forbid, like all the vaults of 1Passwords were stolen by some hacking community, they would need not just a user's master password to decrypt the data, which is the case with LastPass, but they would also need the secret key, which is unique per user in the 1Password system. Also, iCloud Keychain has another similar like secondary method of protection, namely your iCloud two-factor. So like when you try to sign into iCloud on a new device or just try to sign into iCloud, the website, you have to have your username, your password, but also the two-step verification code, which is not via SMS, although you can do SMS as a backup, but it sends like a proprietary notification to all of your Apple devices, 6-digit code, and you have to hit OK. That would also be required to decrypt any data in your iCloud keychain. So just overall, doesn't look great for LastPass. Like LastPass, this is not a great sign into the kind of security that LastPass put for their vaults, but gives a little more confidence in 1Password's method of securing your data, and of course iCloud Keychain, and has me thinking again, maybe I just want to go all in on iCloud Keychain.
Well, so my understanding about LastPass is it grew very popular a few years ago, I think because it was one of the free options, I think there's a free and a paid option or something. Anyway, it's just easier to get into than other like services because they're usually paid. And for some reason, everyone forgets that Google and Apple offer their own built-in free password systems. But I think the reason why people are attracted to things like LastPass is because they're looking for a tool that they consider universal that can go between Windows and iCloud and Android and stuff. And that's, again, understandable, but I just don't understand why people still go with LastPass. I have heard of a LastPass breach like every 6 months for the last like 8 years. This sounds like an exaggeration, but maybe it's just always in the back of my mind. But I feel like we are constantly being told that LastPass has been breached in some way, or passwords have been stolen, or something. Maybe I'm confusing it with another company, but I have never been able to recommend LastPass, and I've always told people if you need something bigger than iCloud, just pay for 1Password. Like, it's worth it. $40 a year, I would argue, is very affordable, is I think their general plan for personal use.
Sure.
But iCloud Keychain should be what everyone uses that doesn't need the family features. And again, like that universal password transference thing, it's becoming less of an issue with each passing like month. Like, it's not even, we don't have to wait for every WWDC. They're expanding the capabilities of Keychain every few releases. So now you can get a Chrome extension. There's the Windows password manager. So through Chrome, you can probably access it on Android. It's a little iffy on Android, but if you're an Android user, you should probably be using Google's password manager, right? So I just don't understand why people I feel like the market doesn't need 50 password managers. Like, this isn't like an app store. You just need a couple of good, secure options, and it needs to be whittled down to a few options because of issues like this, where security gets compromised. And if there's too many things running around claiming to be a password manager, people get enticed into these compromising situations and then find that their information has been stolen, and it's just not great.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that has kept me from going all in on iCloud Keychain is I do use 1Password for things like bank accounts, like checking accounts, savings accounts. I like to keep those numbers in there. I also keep sensitive information like social security numbers and all that. And iCloud Keychain does not have like specific like entries for those kinds of pieces of data.
It's not as widely
It's not as flexible.
applicable,
It's
right?
not as flexible.
What you're saying is you use 1Password's secure notes feature, which lets you add just random bits of information to an encrypted vault.
Well, not even that. Like 1Password has like specific categories for like bank accounts, and so it'll have like the automated populated fields, and then you can search for
autofill.
Yeah, but also like you could search for bank accounts and then just see like pull up quickly all of your bank account numbers in one go, you know?
Whereas like if you try to do the same thing on Apple's keychain, it's possible, but it's a workaround intensive task. Like you could store your bank account's checking account number and savings number in the password notes field inside of the keychain,
right?
But you'd have to remember that it's there. You'd have to go and open it and search it, and yeah, it's much more complicated.
And I also keep like software license codes, like serial numbers for software that I've purchased in 1Password. And there's like, again, specific categories and types of items in 1Password for that. Even Wi-Fi passwords, I keep that in there. And again, you can kind of hack all this in. I did see an article from someone recently, I forgot who it was, but they basically said they moved from 1Password to iCloud Keychain, but one of their solutions was keeping some of the data in Apple Notes in secure notes where you can password protect individual notes, but that does not help with like ease of copy paste, easily accessing that information.
Storing the data, like that's the thing. There's no issues with storing the data. There's a million ways to do it on iOS. Like that's my method is I store secure information in Apple Notes encrypted, and then I secure passwords and stuff in Keychain. And I don't have any other password manager. So I'm all in on Apple systems.
Sure.
But that's the trade-off is you are sacrificing the convenience of a paid program. Like 1Password is excellent because you have to pay for it. Like if you can throw the $40 a year at it, it's absolutely worth the price of admission.
For sure. And sharing vaults, again, like that would be a huge feature. If you could share logins with your iCloud family members, I would deeply consider going all in on iCloud Keychain.
I wonder if there's an issue with that because of end-to-end encryption and how Apple handles passwords. Maybe it needs a separate family vault where you can like choose, kind of like iCloud shared photo library. When you say move the photo from your personal library to the family library, it takes your password,
right?
The photo out of your personal photo library and moves it into the family photo library. I think a similar system could be used for passwords where you have a vault of these are the shared passwords and they are not duplicated across platforms. I think that would solve the end encryption issue.
Sure.
But it raises concerns for other things like do you want everyone to have unilateral access to certain passwords?
Right. I will say final thing, if you do want to switch to iCloud Keychain, they do have an import passwords feature. So you could export your library from 1Password and import it into iCloud Keychain in the system settings on a Mac. And you could do that. And you can also export all of your iCloud Keychain passwords. Because one of the things is, like my process right now, I'll save every login in both. I save it in iCloud Keychain and I save it in 1Password because I'm also like a redundancy nerd. Like I want to know I have it in two places.
It's exhausting.
It is exhausting. But if I were to go all in on iCloud Keychain, because I didn't know you could do this before, you can export all your passwords from iCloud Keychain as just a plain text CSV file. And I would not keep that file like in a unsecured cloud service, like I wouldn't put it on my Dropbox or whatever. But if you have a local storage solution like a Synology, maybe put it on there. Or what I would probably do is literally just print it out and put it in a physical safe and like let that physical copy be the redundancy to iCloud Keychain.
Terrible. Paper is the worst security. I mean, unless you...
Redundancy. Wes, what happens if you lose access to your iCloud for some reason?
You put it in a safe with a lock on it that if you enter the wrong password in 5 times, a like thermite goes off inside of the safe and sets everything on fire.
No. I want a low-tech safe. Like I'm talking like a locker-style rotary dial, so you don't even have to worry about losing a key. It's just a turn dial thing. Many times as you need to figure it out.
And people were talking about how easy it is to break into the lock in someone's front door. You imagine how easy it is to break into a rotary lock safe.
I mean, I don't think Ocean's 11 is going to be breaking into my house trying to get into my safe, but at least it is a secure enough,
Right.
like it's in my bedroom closet. It's really just for my knowledge that if something were to happen to my iCloud account, I can still get my passwords.
It is funny because we are basically offering water to fish or whatever the expression is these people that are using LastPass are all their foot's already in the door. They're using a password manager. They're trying to be safe.
Yeah.
Yet the entire rest of it's like that kid drowning in the swimming pool. The entire rest of the planet is using the same password for 400 different accounts, and it's their last name 123 birthday.
I will say my dad, he had this method. He did not save passwords in like 1Password. I don't even know if he did it in iCloud Keychain. Instead, he had a secure note on his phone that he would basically write a riddle that describes what the password was that only he could like decrypt. And like me and my mom a couple times have had to like try and decipher what these riddles are, which there's a small element of fun, but really it's more concerning because like I don't know if we're going to get to an account one day where it's like we can't figure out what he meant by this. But I think actually that's pretty slick. Like pretty slick to like riddle out your passwords where even if someone saw it, they wouldn't know.
The password is a limerick written in a certain,
Exactly. Yeah. It's a Aesop's fable that you have to figure out. But anyway, if you used a LastPass, I would recommend changing your passwords and just moving to iCloud Keychain.
Pay for 1Password or get iCloud Keychain. Ignore everything else on the planet. Dashling's fine. It's I've used it before. It's more GUI pretty, like its interface is very pretty looking.
Yeah.
It doesn't really do anything any different from 1Password. I don't really know much else about it other than just get 1Password, or if you don't want to pay, iCloud Keychain or Google. And I mean, outside of that, what do you need? You're fine.
Well, again, the only thing about like iCloud Keychain is like if you need to use Chrome or Brave, it is a bit of a process because there's no extensions. You know what I mean? Like you can't do an iCloud Keychain autofill in Google Chrome.
But that's what I'm saying. But choose what's best for you. If you're a Chrome user, use the Google system, right? Like I have nothing against Google's password system. If you're already in that area, like you're not going to worry about giving Google your passwords. So just use their password system.
That's true.
Like
Yeah, fair. So DaVinci Resolve, the editor, this was announced with the M2 iPad Pro back in October. It is now available. There were lots of videos like on YouTube of people reviewing it. And we have an article, William wrote it, basically that there are now super powerful video editors on the iPad. Of course, we've had LumaFusion for a long time. That's still there. You have Premiere Rush from Adobe, and now DaVinci Resolve, which is like a really powerful video editing application. I've had a couple people, I was on the iPad Pros podcast with Tim, and I still am not tempted to try these third-party options. Like, I love Final Cut so much, and I use it on the Mac every day. Like, I still just want Final Cut on the iPad. Like, it's great that we have these options, and if there are DaVinci Resolve users out there, I'd be curious how the iPad version compares to your normal workflow. But all of these things, at least for me personally, would be a learning curve. And so I'm still holding out. I don't know if it'll ever happen. Holding out for Final Cut on the iPad. Do you think we have any chance of that?
I mean, it's going to happen eventually. Like, just either Final Cut gets converted to Swift UI or something. I don't know. I feel like there's two roads converging, and eventually they have to converge. So either
in a yellow wood,
like either the iPad Pro gets just so powerful that they're like it'll run it without us even have to convert anything. It just automatically works. Or Final Cut Pro gets converted into an iPad app because universal app architecture gets so good that they don't have to do anything. Like, I think those roads just meet in the middle at some point, and just by happenstance almost. I don't think Apple's going to deliberately do it, because if they were, they would have already done that. But I think just by happenstance, almost by accident, they're like, oops, Final Cut's on iPad now. It'll happen eventually, sure. But there's as much likelihood as Aperture coming back, I think, as Apple developing Final Cut specifically for iPad at this point, though.
All right, well, the last thing I wanted to ask you, Wes, I'm going to ask for your help. I'm asking you for Genius Bar assistance, okay? I don't think there's a good answer for this. As I have grown in my HomePod network and Apple TV network, whenever something is playing on a HomePod, let's say, for instance, my kids are playing something in the kitchen HomePod, which is on like the opposite side of the wall from here in my studio, every time I pick up my phone, it is showing what is playing on that HomePod mini. I have the controls for it. The artwork comes up, which when you're wanting to control the thing that's playing is really convenient. But when you're wanting to play something on your phone, not stop what is on the HomePod in the other room and not like accidentally AirPlay what I want to listen to that HomePod, trying to figure out the voodoo to actually disconnect from that HomePod and like in the control center do weird things, or in the music app, and like it'll ask, do you want to replace what's on that HomePod? And I say, no, I don't want to do that. Do you have any knowledge or secret information on like best practices for disconnecting from whatever currently playing HomePod or Apple TV and just like playing something on my phone without it being like a whole deal? Do you ever run into this issue?
It's a swipe and 3 taps, Stephen.
Are you serious?
But if that's complicated, it's what you said. It's the control center thing. You swipe down to get control center. You tap on the now playing widget. You tap on control other speakers, and then you tap on your iPhone. The end. You're done. I know that's annoying and stupid, but it's now muscle memory to the point where I don't even think about it. Bam, bam, bam. I'm controlling my iPhone. I'm no longer controlling my office HomePods or whatever.
But does that never accidentally move whatever was playing on the HomePod to your iPhone?
No, because when you if you do the control other speakers and devices, you are selecting what you're controlling. Now, what you're talking about is if you hit the AirPlay indicator by the skip button inside of the playing widget,
right,
that opens a menu called that is AirPlay 1. This is the AirPlay 1 standard, where you're joining all the HomePod speakers and Apple TVs together to create one unifying thing. Everybody's playing the same thing. So if you click on something in there, that moves the audio to the different device or removes it from the HomePod and brings it to your iPhone. That is not the menu you want. You want the menu way below at the bottom that says control other speakers and TVs. And it brings up the list of every HomePod and thing that you own in the house, showing what's now playing on all of them, and you select your iPhone.
Okay.
And then you're done.
I'll try that. I'll try that from now on.
Now for listeners, if that's, again, it doesn't have to be 3 button presses. It can be 1 button press using shortcuts. If you have the shortcut, right? So
yeah,
you can build a shortcut that, and I like this too. You can build a shortcut where you can get as complicated as you want, but you can add an icon to your home screen or use the shortcuts widget and have a play Apple Music or play my favorite playlist or play my radio station, whatever. When you click on the icon or the shortcut or whatever, it'll just connect to your AirPods, switch audio to your phone, connect to your AirPods if they're in, and start playing the audio source of your choice, be it Overcast or Podcast or Apple Music, whatever. Just design the shortcut however you want, and you're 1 button press away anytime that you want to just get audio on your phone playing.
Okay.
Or just set up a shortcut that's simply 1 button press and your audio source is now your iPhone. And that way you don't have to go to Control Center. But Stephen, it's a swipe and 3 taps. It's
all right. I will practice. I will practice. Listeners, let me know if it justify my frustration. If any of you out there also experience the wild like shifting of audio, let me know. You can tweet at Wes and myself or Mastodon us. You can Mastodon. You're on Mastodon. I have your link in the show notes.
Yep.
And I'm on Mastodon. And of course, thanks for all the 5-star reviews. Support the show. You can get an ad-free version in Apple Podcast or patreon.com/AppleInsider. And we'll be back next week. Hopefully exciting Apple things coming this year in 2023. I'm looking forward to it all. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.